Everything was normal. I don't expect you to believe me. Hell, I barely believe it myself, and I lived through it. It started when I moved into a quiet little suburb just outside of Madison, Wisconsin. One of those places where the lawns are always freshly trimmed, the mailboxes are cute and mismatched, and you can smell someone baking banana bread from a few houses down. It was the kind of neighborhood you dream of settling down in. Quiet, predictable, safe. I'd just signed the lease on this old two-story house at the edge of the cul-de-sac. White paint peeling a little on the siding, but otherwise cozy. Too cozy, actually. It had been empty for nearly 2 years, but the landlord offered it for cheap, said it was just too far out for the younger crowd. That was fine by me. I was looking for solitude, a fresh start. Just me, my coffee maker, and a second-hand couch from Facebook Marketplace. For the first few days, everything was ordinary. I unpacked my boxes, figured out which kitchen cabinet was going to be the snack zone, and got used to the rhythmic creaks of the house settling at night. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of silence that swallows you whole after 10 p.m. No car engines, no dogs barking, just crickets, the wind, and occasionally the soft hum of a distant lawn sprinkler kicking on too early. I worked from home, so most of my days were spent glued to my laptop in the upstairs study. It overlooked the street, a small circular road that looped around a dying oak tree in the center. That tree, I didn't pay attention to it at first, but now when I think back, that tree was always still. No birds ever perched on it. The branches never moved with the wind. It just stood there like a sentinel watching. My neighbors were kind but distant. The old couple across the street waved once and then retreated back into their lives. The house directly to my right had its blinds down all the time, like they were trying to keep something out or in. I brushed it off. People have their quirks. I liked the quiet. The first week passed uneventfully, but around day 10, I noticed something odd. I was making coffee around 6 a.m. I always wake up early, long before sunrise. As I stood by the kitchen window waiting for the kettle to boil, I looked out toward the backyard. Just beyond the fence was the start of a small patch of woods. Not thick enough to be a forest, just a few dozen trees scattered around like a forgotten grove. They gave the backyard some privacy, which I liked. But that morning, I saw something. A tall, pale figure standing between two trees. Unmoving. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, looked again. Gone. I laughed to myself. Probably a trick of the Lito, the steam from the kettle. I hadn't had caffeine yet. The brain plays tricks when it's starved. But that wasn't the only time. A few days later, I started hearing things. Not loud noises, Not even anything distinct, just whispers. At first, I thought it was the pipes or the wind slipping through the cracks in the attic. But these whispers were rhythmic, intentional, almost like someone was trying to speak through static just beyond understanding. I'd hear them most when I was alone in the study at night, the door closed, lights dimmed. Just the soft glow of my desk lamp and the silence pressing in. That's when I started sleeping with the lights on. I didn't tell anyone. I figured I was just stressed. Or maybe it was the isolation. I mean, I moved into this place to get away from things. But maybe I'd gone too far. Then something changed. I was in the study again, working late. It was raining, one of those soft, endless Midwestern rains that makes the air feel heavy. The storm had knocked out the power briefly earlier in the evening, but everything had come back on, except the motion light in the backyard. I glanced out the window and froze. There, standing at the edge of the tree line, same place as before, was the figure, taller than any person I've ever seen. Gaunt. His limbs were too long, too thin, like someone had drawn a human, but didn't know where to stop the lines. He didn't move. He didn't wave. Just stood there, staring. But the worst part, the longer I looked, the more I felt like something inside me was unraveling. Like the part of my brain that handles logic and safety and comfort was being peeled away. And then I heard it, a whisper, directly behind me. I turned. Nothing. When I looked back out the window, the figure was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep the next night either. And the thing is, I started to feel watched. Always. Whether I was brushing my teeth or watching TV or pouring cereal in the morning, I felt it. That itchy, crawling feeling under your skin when you know someone is standing behind you. But when you look, there's no one there. At least no one you can see. It wasn't just outside anymore. Sometimes when I walked past the mirror in the hallway, I'd swear there was a flash of movement behind me. Not my own reflection, something else. Something tall, pale, just out of frame. I thought about calling someone. A friend, a therapist, anyone. But I didn't want to sound crazy. And worse, I wasn't sure if saying his name would make him stronger. I started locking every door and window before bed. I left lights on in every room. I even set up a salt line across my bedroom door, half jokingly. Like maybe if I acted like I believed it, it wouldn't be real. But the whispers didn't stop. They were getting louder, and they started saying my name. Something isn't quite right. I wish I could say things went back to normal, that the whispers were just stress, or that the pale figure in the woods was just some sleep-deprived mirage. But if you've ever truly been afraid, not startled, but afraid, then you'll understand when I say, when something is real. And whatever I saw, it was very, very real. The whispers started to change after that night. They didn't just say my name anymore. They asked questions. Do you remember what you did? Why did you come here? Did you see him? The voice wasn't exactly human. It sounded scraped, like it had been dragged through metal and teeth before it reached my ears. Low, fragmented, as if multiple people were whispering all at once, but too close to my head. I tried recording it. I left my phone on my nightstand, voice recorder app running. When I played it back the next morning, all I heard was static, except at exactly 3:17 a.m. there was a single phrase, clear as day, spoken in a voice I swear wasn't mine. He's almost inside. I stared at the waveform on my phone for an hour, watching that spike in the audio, replaying it again and again. Almost inside. Inside. Where inside? What I started noticing other things. Little changes. My plants died. All of them. Not over time, overnight. One day, they were fine. The next, they were shriveled husks. Their soil black and wet, like they'd been drowned. The air in the house felt heavier, thicker, like breathing through damp wool. And the mirrors, God, the mirrors. One evening, I caught my reflection blinking out of sync with me. I was brushing my teeth, watching myself the way people do when they're zoning out, and I saw my reflections, eyes blink a full second after mine did. I dropped the toothbrush, stepped back, and then the reflection smiled. I didn't. I covered that mirror with a towel. I covered all the mirrors in the house after that. It got worse. One morning, I found muddy footprints in the hallway. Long, inhuman, like someone or something had walked through my home during the night. The toes were narrow, stretched. The stride was impossibly wide. It started from the back door and led directly to my bedroom. The door had been locked. I know it had. I checked it twice. I called the police. They came, looked around, and told me there were no signs of forced entry. They saw the footprints but shrugged, said maybe it was an animal, a raccoon. Maybe a neighbor's kid pulling a prank. I asked how a raccoon made it to my second floor without breaking a single window. They didn't have an answer. That was the day I found the journal. It was under a loose floorboard in the study, wedged beside an old yellowed newspaper clipping. The journal was thin, leather-bound, smelled like mildew and dust. Most of the pages were torn out, but a few remained. The handwriting was tight, nervous, scribbled like someone was running out of time. He doesn't like mirrors. He lives in the gaps between reflections. Don't look at him. Don't even think about him too long. He comes when you're alone. That's the rule. He needs silence. That's where he grows. If you hear him whisper your name 3 nights in a row, leave. It's already too late. I flipped to the last page. It had just one line centered, written in shaky, uneven strokes. If you're reading this, run. And beneath it was my name. My full name. First, middle, last. Written in ink that hadn't fully dried. I dropped the journal and stepped away like it had burned me. My skin was clammy, my mouth dry. My chest felt like it was caving in. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't stress. Someone or something had been watching me before I even arrived. I tried to leave that night, packed a bag, grabbed my keys, bolted for the door. It wouldn't open. Not jammed, not stuck. It was like the lock didn't exist anymore. There was no click, no movement, just silence. I tried the back door, same thing. I looked out the kitchen window. He was standing in the yard, closer this time, closer than ever before. I could see the way his suit hung on his frame wrong, like it wasn't made for a human shape. His arms hung too low, almost to his knees. His face, I still can't describe it. Blank maybe, or maybe my mind refused to process it. Every time I looked too closely, I felt like I was falling. That's when the whispers returned, louder, urgent, not just in my ears, but inside my head. He was calling me by names I'd never spoken aloud, names I didn't even know were mine. I pressed my hands to my ears, screamed, cried, begged him to go away. And just like that, silence. When I opened my eyes, he was gone, and the door opened like it always had. I ran, drove for hours, didn't stop until the sun was up. I booked a cheap motel off the interstate somewhere in Illinois, called in sick to work, told them I had the flu. I slept with the lights on and the TV humming all night. No whispers, no shadows, no signs. I told myself I was safe, but the motel's bathroom mirror, it had a crack running through it. And when I leaned in to brush my teeth, something moved behind my reflection. Rules. True fear revealed. I didn't leave the motel room for 3 days. I ordered food delivery and told the front desk not to disturb me. The crack in the mirror small, as it was kept catching my eye every time I walked past. Not because of what it showed, but because of what it didn't. My reflection always stood a half step behind me. Not once did it move in sync. On the second night, I taped a towel over the mirror. On the third, I unplugged the TV and left the bathroom light on, even though it flickered like a dying candle. I couldn't stand the dark anymore, not even to sleep. That's when I started writing everything down. I needed to make sense of it all. I tried to remember every moment, every whisper, every rule. Because there were rules. There had to be. That thing, the slender man, whatever it truly was, didn't just follow me randomly. It fed on specific conditions, like a parasite or a ritual. It didn't like noise or crowds. It needed stillness, isolation, silence. It came strongest at 3:17 a.m., the exact time it whispered he's almost inside on my recording. That wasn't a warning. It was a threshold. If I was awake and alone in a quiet space, he would come closer. That's why he didn't appear when the TV was on. That's why he vanished the moment I screamed. It didn't want attention. It wanted submission. Something in me started to crack under that weight. That motel room felt like a coffin after a while. Every sound made me jump, the thud of feet in the room above, the rattle of the air conditioner, the soft knock on the door at 3 a.m. I didn't answer it. I knew better by then. But I made a mistake. I got curious. I wanted to know who had lived in the house before me. Maybe if I understood what happened there, I could figure out why this was happening to me. So I drove back, not to stay, just to look. I told myself I wouldn't even get out of the car. But you and I both know how stories like this go. The front door was slightly ajar, like it had been waiting. There were dead leaves in the foyer, dust patterns that hadn't been disturbed since I left. But something was off. A chair in the hallway was turned backward. A single cup sat in the center of the kitchen floor. The walls were darker than I remembered, like something had seeped into the paint. I didn't plan to go upstairs, but the diary was missing. And something, call it instinct or fear, or maybe just his voice, drew me up that staircase like a fish on a line. When I reached the bedroom, the one I'd been sleeping in before I fled, I stopped. There were dozens of sketches on the walls, in charcoal pencil ash, overlapping figures, long limbs, trees with arms instead of branches, a mouth drawn in reverse, symbols I couldn't read but felt like they were watching me. One sketch, however, was new. It was me, standing at the foot of the bed, staring up at something tall. The creature loomed over my figure, bending forward as if whispering into my skull. My shadow cast on the floor beneath us was twisted, contorted in a way the light couldn't explain. My heart started racing. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw the writing freshly scrawled across the inside of the bedroom door. Don't sleep when I'm awake. I didn't wait. I ran, bolted out of the house, slammed the car door so hard I cracked the window. I drove all night, didn't care where, just away. But something had changed. I started seeing him in places I shouldn't, in crowds, in reflections, on the side of the highway, always far enough to doubt, close enough to feel. The motel mirrors stayed covered. The lights never went off. I kept my earbuds in every second. I was alone, white noise playing 24/7. No silence, no stillness. It worked for a while until the motel phone rang. It was 3:17 a.m. I answered it without thinking. The line was dead, just static, until the whisper came almost a sigh against my eardrum. Now you're mine. Then click. Silence. I didn't sleep for 3 days after that. But sleep isn't something you can avoid forever. And when I finally did, I woke up with muddy footprints on the carpet again, leading from the corner of the room, the one without any furniture, the one with the mirror behind the towel. It was no longer covered. I swear I hadn't touched it, but the towel lay neatly folded at my feet. The crack in the glass had grown wider, and this time my reflection didn't match me at all. It was smiling, its head tilted like it was listening. Then it mouthed the words, almost inside, climax twist, the whisper that stayed. I left that motel before dawn. Didn't pack, didn't pay. Just grabbed my keys and drove barefoot, still in the same shirt I'd been wearing for days. Something inside me had snapped, not from fear, from knowing that I wasn't alone anymore. That thing who wasn't outside anymore. He was closer than my shadow, closer than breath. And I think he was waiting for me to realize it. I drove until my car ran out of gas. Somewhere along the edge of a town I didn't know the name of. Trees bent low over the road, casting long spidery shadows in the headlights. The kind that moved even when the wind didn't. I walked. I left the car and wandered into a diner just off the highway, one of those all-night places that smells like burnt coffee and despair. The waitress didn't say a word, just slid me a mug and stared. And that's when I realized she was looking at something behind me. But when I turned around, no one was there. Still, I didn't question it. I just sat down, sipped the lukewarm coffee, tried to feel human again. Then the radio behind the counter crackled. It had been silent when I walked in, but now it buzzed with a low hum, almost a breathing, like lungs filling and emptying slowly, rhythmically. Then a voice, soft, almost kind. He only comes when you listen. I turned to the waitress. "Did you hear that?" She didn't move. Her face was pale blank, but her hand gripping the coffee pot was trembling violently. Drops of hot liquid splattered across the floor, sizzling as they hit. I stood, and then I saw the writing on the napkin dispenser, a message carved into the chrome with something sharp. "You looked too long." My knees buckled. I backed out of the diner. The moment I stepped outside, the world felt wrong. The stars were gone. The night had thickened like syrup. Every sound was muffled. And then I saw him, just past the tree line, tall as the branches, arms too long, limbs too still, head tilted like he was listening again. No face, just presence. And as I stared, too afraid to move, he raised a hand, not to wave, to point at me. Suddenly I remembered the rule: don't sleep when he's awake, and he was wide awake now. I ran into the woods, into the dark. My body screamed with exhaustion, my mind begging for quiet. But the trees didn't end. The path didn't change. I was running in circles, or the world was folding around me. And then I stumbled into a clearing. There in the center was a mirror. My mirror. The same one from the motel. Standing upright, its crack now split like a lightning bolt. Waiting. I don't know how I got there, but when I looked into it, I didn't see myself. I saw him behind me, closer than ever. His whisper filled my skull, not my ears. Inside me, "Let me in." I turned. Nothing. Turned back to the mirror. He was gone. But I was smiling now. Same tilt of the head. Same frozen posture, like a puppet waiting for strings to be pulled. And then I woke up, back in the motel, alone. Room 12. The mirror was intact again. No crack, no towel, nothing. My reflection matched perfectly. I almost cried from relief. Almost, until I noticed something in the corner. A small shadow, not cast by me. It moved slightly, then whispered clear and slow, "I'm already in. I haven't left since." I don't know if I ever did. Days pass, maybe weeks. I can't tell anymore. I don't sleep. I don't eat. The motel staff never knocks. No one remembers me checking in. The phone rings sometimes. I never answer. And every night, just after 3:17 a.m., I hear footsteps pacing in the corner of the room. But there's never anyone there, except in the mirror. There I'm still smiling, head tilted, listening. So if you're watching this, if you hear a whisper in the dark, or see someone tall standing too still at the edge of your vision, don't look too long. Don't listen. And whatever you do, don't sleep when he's awake. Because once he gets in, you don't get out. Not really. You're just a whisper too after that, waiting for someone else to listen.